Welcome to this lecture by Wisdom Mitra, your friend in pursuit of wisdom about amendments. The topics that we would be covering today are: what is amendment? When did the first amendment happen? What's the procedure for that? How many amendments have happened till date in India? And some important amendments that we should know about, and some recent amendments as well. And can fundamental rights be amended? And the last and most important, one more important point is about what aspects of constitution can be amended. Basically, the doctrine of basic structure. Let us go into the points. What is amendment? By dictionary definition, it is a small change for improvement to law. And the Constitution of India provides two ways to amend constitution. That is itself. One is amendment performed in accordance with 368. Second is amendment through simple majority. And amendments are considered to be an important part of constitution because through amendments it can be kept in line with latest changes, etc. So it's a power to the constitution that if there are any changes in realities and in the way people are operating, uh, the laws of the land that has been prescribed by constitution, they can quickly change and adopt to the times, and that adoption has been made neither very rigid nor very flexible through this particular methodology. And the article of Indian constitution that talks about amendment is 368, as I just pointed out. But there are some other smaller changes or different changes that can be done to the constitution, and they are not under article 368. For example, formation of new states. So here is the procedure for amendment. One, special majority, that is more than 50% of total membership of each house, and two-third majority of each house members present and voting. That is effectively, to two-third of the majority should be obtained by the amendment, so as to get that getting implemented. So for example, this kind of a change in say directive principle, if that has to be introduced, then the government or any member who has introduced that bill should be uh, getting two-third of majority on that particular aspect. And then there is a second methodology of amendment, and which is like same steps mentioned in the first category, that is this category, but additional requirement of consent of 50% of states. Example, distribution of power between center and state. So if there are any amendments that are impacting the federal structure of the constitution, they are supposed to be getting the consent from 50% of the states. So that's the second way in which amendment happens. These two types of amendments, that is a special majority and special majority with uh, state legislatures, that comes under article 360. Whereas the simple majority, this kind of amendment, for example, formation of new states, changes in salaries, etc., of president, judges, etc., this falls under other articles of Indian Constitution, and they are not under Article 368. Let us go into the history of amendments. When was the first amendment and what are the important amendments, etc. So the first amendment was passed in 1951. That is within 18 months or so of adoption of Constitution. So Constitution was adopted on 26th November 1949, right? And within 1.5 year or so, the First Amendment was introduced, and it impacted the fundamental rights 15, 19, so on and so forth, right? And through that, 31A and 31B were introduced, inserted, and ninth schedule was introduced. One important aspect that you should be knowing is that laws placed in the ninth schedule cannot be challenged in court of law on the ground that they violate the fundamental rights of citizens. But As of now, the Supreme Court has an opinion that even the laws introduced under or kept under ninth schedule, they can also be undergoing judicial review. A few points that you should know about. Can a joint sitting of parliament be called for amendment? No. Can constitution amendment be introduced in Rajya Sabha? Yes. So these are two important points that many a times questions are asked about. So you should be knowing about. Let us now delve into some major amendments. The first amendment, as I just pointed out, happened in June, commenced in June 1951, and it amended the fundamental rights, added the ninth schedule. Another important amendment is 39th Amendment, election of President, Vice President, PM, Speaker taken out of purview of judiciary. 42nd Amendment, 1976-77. This is considered to be one of the major amendments. Many changes were incorporated. It was during emergency, and most important aspect that you should know about is that preamble was introduced with three words: socialist, secular, and integrity. These three words were added in the preamble, right? And next government, after this particular amendment, repealed most of the amendments by amendment number 44. So you should know about 44th Amendment Act as well, 1979. It repealed many changes that were introduced in 42nd Amendment. Right to property was moved from fundamental rights and put as Article 300A. So this is also an important aspect that you should know about. 52nd Amendment Act 1985, anti-defection law, and this led to introduction of 10th schedule. 61st Amendment 1989, age to vote reduced from 21st to 18, 21 to 18 years. Sorry. So Article 326, which is a very important article, and it's about universal adult franchise. This has been altered and amended. 73rd and 74th amendments, these can be read together. Basically, one relates to panchayat, second to municipalities, and Schedule 11th and 12th were added through this particular amendment. 86th amendment is also considered to be very important because it introduced right to education. So, and we can quickly see here, at the beginning of Constitution, there were eight schedules. Schedules are nothing but like appendices in the Constitution. The things that are added after the Constitution, like smaller chapters that explain important things. For example, boundaries of the states or salaries of Supreme Court judges, etc., etc. Right. So, if you see here, though after those eight schedules, the ninth one was added in First Amendment. Right. The 10th one was added during 52nd Amendment, and 11th and 12th were added 73rd and 74th amendments. So and for you to know, there are 12 schedules as of now in Constitution of India. Let us quickly see some of the latest amendments, the most recent ones. So one amendment, 92nd amendment, is very important, especially if you are focusing on law, because formation of judicial national judicial appointment commission was done through this amendment, and it was struck down by Supreme Court on 16th of October 2015, because it was considered to be in violation of basic structure. 100th amendment 2015, exchange of enclave territories with Bangladesh. Again, 101 amendment, this is very important, September 2016. It led to introduction of GST. 102nd Amendment 2018, Constitutional Status to National Commission for Backward Classes. 103rd Amendment 2019, a maximum of 10% reservation for economically weaker sections. 104th, so SCs and STs in Lok Sabha and state assemblies were extended to the reservation up till 2030. 105th Amendment to restore the power of state governments to identify OBCs. 106th Amendment in 2023 to reserve one-third of seats in Lok Sabha and state assemblies for women for next 15 years. One important question that's usually asked is, can fundamental rights be also amended? Yes, the fundamental rights can be amended, but the basic structure cannot be amended. That's the current thought of Supreme Court. So, an example of fundamental right being amended is right to property. If you remember, I said right to property was moved from fundamental rights and put as a legal right in 300A under Article 300. So, fundamental rights can effectively be amended, but basic structure cannot. What is basic structure? If you want to know about doctrine of basic structure, you should be reading about Kesav Nanda Bharti case, 1973. In this, through this case, the Supreme Court, you know, one of the biggest bench of Supreme Court sat for this particular case. As far as I remember, it was 13 judges probably, right? And they decided about, and they gave the idea of basic structure, and many other questions were answered. So, what is basic structure? Basic structure is, the those aspects of constitution that define its texture, that define its, the whole structure. If that is removed, then the constitution would change significantly. And what Supreme Court says is that because amendment by dictionary means a small change, then the changes that are being incorporated should be done in a manner that they don't alter the structure of the constitution. They don't, simply change the whole foundation on which constitution has been put. So some elements of basic structure are for federalism, for example, division of powers between, center and state, for example. Oh, sorry, between, um legislature, judiciary, and executive. Similarly, judicial review. This is also an important basic structure of constitution. Secularism, basic structure of constitution, because it is embedded at multiple places. For example, by Article 25 fundamental rights. Similarly, at multiple other locations, for example, universal adult franchise says clearly that people cannot be discriminated on the basis of religion, for example, right? So these are the some basic elements that are really important, basic structure, and they cannot be altered. That's the current thought process of Supreme Court. There have been, positives and criticisms of basic structure. The positives that have been pointed out are like it promotes constitutional ideals, it maintains supremacy of constitution. You know, um, any party that's in majority cannot simply alter all the aspects of constitution. So constitutional supremacy is being maintained by this, and it promotes judicial activism. People will go and knock the doors of judiciary if they're uh, if they feel that the constitution is being altered, etc. The criticisms are, one is it's converting judiciary into a third decisive chamber of parliament. After Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, judiciary can stop or declare a law ultra virus if basic structure is being violated. The second aspect that the those who point out the criticism in basic structure is that there is no complete definition of what is basic structure. You know, these are the elements of basic structure, but they can be more to it, or they can be other things that are there. But all in all, most of the people have considered it to be a balance between parliament and judiciary. Looking forward to your comments. Also, here are our email and phone number so that you can reach out to us for new batches inquiry.